Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the IELTS Plus English podcast. And in today's episode, we are talking all about mental health. Winter is here. You can see me with my jumper now. It's getting very cold in South Korea. And this is the time of year where mental health becomes a bit more of a challenge. The days are shorter. It's much colder here in South Korea. I'm not sure about your country, but certainly this is a challenging time of year for mental health. So, important topic. And lots of things to talk about today. I've got a sort of extra challenge I'm going to give myself. Well, let's talk about that first. I just want to ensure that you are upgrading different areas of your language. And one area I'd like you to work on are the wonderful adverbs you can use at the start of sentences. Now, there's so many, but I'm going to focus on 3 today. Additionally, conversely, and consequently. One of the things I tell my students here is that when it comes to and so but, and I've seen this in the comments, by the way, a bit of overuse of and, so, and but. You've got to think about, well, how can I upgrade these and where can I get them into an answer? So instead of saying and, you'll say additionally. Instead of saying so, you'll say consequently. And instead of but, you'll say conversely. And that's what I'm going to try to do for you today in part 1. I'll focus on it in part 1 because later we'll get into the vocabulary. The vocabulary today, really important things that are definitely going to come out in my answer. Things like depression, burnout, overwhelmed. These are the negative words. There's positive ones as well, but those are very important when we talk about mental health, and those are available in my textbook on www.britplus.net. You can download it there to help you with your IELTS preparation. So that's my extra challenge, and I suppose you want a student challenge. That's a very important part, and so your student challenge today is: what are some common mental health issues that people face? Now, this is a very open part 1 question for you. And I just want you to say, when you look around you in your country, what mental health issues do you see? For example, here in South Korea, historically, burnout has been a very common issue. Burnout. That's one of today's key words, which is when you overwork and you collapse, you have nothing left, you have no energy, and it can cause physical issues as well. So that's your student challenge today. We're going to do some part 1s, and for these part 1s, I want you to listen carefully for additionally, conversely, and consequently. How do I use them? Part 1, question 1. What are some common mental health issues people face today? I think one of the most common mental health issues is anxiety. I think that's because people are spending less time with people and more time using the internet. Additionally, burnout is an issue nowadays. I say nowadays, but I think it always has been, certainly here in South Korea, because people work too much and they burn out. So there was a very clean answer. There were 2 answers I gave, anxiety and burnout, and I connected them in the middle with additionally. By the way, this is not prepared beforehand. I am freestyling it, but that was a relatively easy one to use in that case. The next question. What activities do you find helpful for maintaining good health? For me, I would say mindfulness is quite a good way to cope with the stress and various issues I face day to day. I do try to practice mindfulness in different activities I do, including when I exercise in the gym. Consequently, I'm able to clear my mind of the issues and problems and the thoughts that go through my brain and focus more on the present. So there, I used consequently, which is just another way, an upgraded way of saying so. And I've got one more that I haven't used, right, which is conversely. So listen out for conversely later in today's podcast. Let's move on to part 2. Describe a time when you or someone you know faced a mental health challenge. Okay, well, I think I will focus on myself. I think that I do have something to say about this when it comes to my work. So let's put 2 minutes on the clock. My 2 minutes starts now. I'd like to tell you about the time when I suffered from burnout. About 7 years ago, I started the main portion of my business, which means that I opened my academy. The Office Academy. And at that time, I was so keen to build my business. I already had students, but I really wanted to build this busy and successful academy. So I invested so much time into it. And in the end, I really suffered from burnout. I had a lot of different symptoms. I suffered physically, mentally, I was more tired, I was eating poorly, and overall, I just became really overwhelmed by this business project. So let me tell you a little more about this period. I definitely felt it quite quickly. I mean, I'd been working hard for 6 months or a year, and I suddenly felt very overwhelmed. And I showed symptoms of burnout, and it started to show physically, and I had to go to hospital for a few reasons. And I realized I was also disconnecting from friends. I was just not being social because I was just investing everything into this business. So in order to overcome this burnout, I decided to firstly cut down the number of classes. And most importantly, the most important thing to cope with this was exercise. So I think at that time I started boxing, and it really made a big impact on my mental health. So for me personally, I realized that physical health and exercise... Wow. Okay. I have to say, I normally get a sense of time when I'm doing these 2 minutes because I've done so many. This is episode 61, I think, that I get really a sense of, okay, I'm getting to the end of 2 minutes. That surprised me today. And that's one note I'll quickly give you. If you do, let's say, 50 at home, you practice part 2 50 times, you will develop a sense of time. And that's so important for having a structure and a strategy for part 2. Feeling that time allows you to decide, okay, shall I move on to the next section of the structure? The structure I'm referring to today is the one that I use in my textbook. And in the textbook, it shows you all the timing, like, okay, you should be moving on at this point at 1 minute, at 1 minute, 50 seconds. So most importantly, developing a feeling, a sense of time is really valuable. Good. Okay, let's do some part 3s. Okay, well, let me just lay it out. I still have a lot of words to use, and I still must use conversely. So let's try and do that over the next 3 questions. It won't be easy, but let's see how we do. The first part 3 is, what role do schools and workplaces play in promoting mental health? I think that schools must promote mental health as something that you can talk about, and it's open, and it's not a taboo subject. Because I think when you're young, you can develop this feeling of it being a taboo subject, which is wrong. So I think that definitely schools can offer counseling, and they can inform students that, hey, this is something you can be very open about. Conversely, I would say that workplaces, at that point, we don't need to think so much about it being a taboo subject. I think adults nowadays are starting to be a bit more open about therapy and mental health and how you cope. But they do need to provide these services such as counseling, or at least guide employees to counseling, therapy, etc. Okay, good. I think, by the way, that was a lot of language, and I used conversely, so that was a good start. Let's go to the next one. How has the perception of mental health changed in recent years? As I mentioned in the previous answer, when I talked about adults, it's definitely changed and it's become a more open subject. However, I think this really depends on which country you live in. I come from England, where that transition to becoming becoming less of a taboo happened quite a long time ago. And I think nowadays, particularly in men, it's a much more open subject. Here in Korea, it's in the process of transitioning. So the topics such as depression, burnout, anxiety are now becoming more open, and employees are recognizing it, and you can see more centers for therapy, mental health clinics opening up. Good. Part 3 and question 3. What are the benefits of mental health awareness campaigns? I think I've said most things. I've talked a lot about the openness. So let's take a bit of a different angle at this. I think that of course, it allows people it encourages people to seek counseling, therapy, do new activities that are quite mental health focused, such as, I believe, yoga and Pilates are really beneficial, not only for physical, but also mental health. And I think just the long-term effect of this is that we will just become more healthy mentally, and we'll take more care of our work-life balance. Perhaps we'll not invest as much time into study or certainly stressful activities, whatever is a stressor for you. So the most important thing about these mental health campaigns is awareness and people making adjustments to their life. Okay, well, I did what I wanted to do. Just a quick recap. Try to be aware of how much you use and, so, and but. If you feel like you're using them too much, find some alternatives. There are lots of alternatives, and I've only given you 3 today. And becomes additionally, so becomes consequently, but becomes conversely. There are transition phrases such as having said that, on top of that. These are also good options, but be aware of your habits and try to substitute them with higher level language. Thank you so much for listening today. Perhaps a little bit of a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a subject I do enjoy talking about. And next week, we are going to talk about museums and galleries. That's a very, I think some students will be so comfortable with that, and others, and I think I'm in this category, will be less comfortable because I don't really visit museums and galleries that much. But let's see. So take care. Have a wonderful week, study incredibly hard, and I'll see you next Monday for museums and galleries.